I will call the hearing into session on the application number 2908 for a sign at special permit and a variance for signage at 675 Blue Hill Avenue, the Gardner School. And tonight on the panel, we have myself as chair, Kathleen O'Donnell, and gentlemen, want to introduce yourselves?
Michael Brown.
Chris Hart.
Excellent. And we have our clerk, Bill Donnelly. And so we have on the joining us today, we have Heather Duco from the sign company and Chris Fessenden from the Gardner School. Isn't I right about that? So just to briefly point out, we have a request for a special permit under our new sign bylaw because we have a new sign that's in that accessory to a non-residential use in a residential neighborhood. So we have this new Gardner School, which has been approved by the planning board with site plan approval. But they unfortunately under our bylaw they need to have a special permit for the signs, and they also need a variance. They've asked for a variance for the setback on the so-called monument sign, which is the sign sort of on the highway on Blue Hill Avenue that would introduce you to the school site, and that is proposed to be 6.2 feet instead of 15 feet from the side of the roadway. As part of the file, we have the application that was filed on May 21st of 2026. And we have also attached to that, we have the site plan approval that was done by the planning board dated March 31st of 2025. We have the site development plan dated August 28th of 2024. We have staff findings done by by our planning staff. We have a objections comment letters from an abutter or a neighbor named Tim Kiernan. In addition to that, we have the letter from the to the board from the sign review committee dated June 5th, 2026. And we have a response from Chris, I believe, to the comments, staff comments made by the staff comments made by our planning department that were dated June 16th, 2026. And I believe that that's the contents of our materials for this application. Let me, anybody know if I've missed anything, but I think that's it. And so, who would like to speak first?
I'll start.
Okay.
Okay. For the record, my name is Heather Dudko, 27 Old Meeting House Road in Auburn, Mass. I'm a sign permit consultant that works with National Sign, who's the sign installer for the school. And we are before the board tonight, as the chair pointed out, for a special permit for the use for the signs because it's a business use in a residential area, and then a variance for the setback of the sign. So I could just kind of generally go through the sign proposal description that was presented to sign review and recommended for approval. It's simply a wall sign on the front elevation, a logo and lettering the Gardner School. They're painted letters, non-illuminated. The Gardner School lettering is approximately 29.67 square foot with a 16-inch letter height. And the logo is about 7 square foot, 32-inch height. The diameter is about 7 square feet. And then the monument sign is proposed as externally illuminated, 76 inches wide by 77 inches tall. It does have the logo on it. Acrylic pin mounted letters that read the Gardner School and preschool serving ages 6 weeks to 5 years. It's proposed on a brick base, and the brick matches the components of the building. And we are asking for the setback to be 6.2 foot. I believe, and Chris can probably have a little more information on this, but there is some site topography that does not allow the sign to meet the 15-foot setback. So that's why it's placed where it is.
Oh, okay.
And that's really the crux of the sign proposal. It's a very simple, we think simple, clear, concise, not overdone. It's in keeping with the building architecture and complements the building and the area.
Great. Did Chris or Michael, do you have any questions for Heather on the sign itself?
I I don't have any questions. I haven't seen a photo of it, but I did pull up the I know there are locations nearby, for example, one in Dedham, and I assume the sign is going to look substantially similar to that sign.
Yeah, that actually might be, for the record, Chris Fazenden with the Gardner School. Dedham might be the exact match. Dedham is the other school that had the natural stone veneer in lieu of the brick finish, so it should actually be identical to that.
Thank you.
Well, that's good to know, actually. I drive by that every week to go to rehearsal, so yeah, I've seen it.
Can I have a question. In terms of the setback issue, just because that involves the variance,
Mhm.
and you mentioned the topography. What exactly is the topography issue?
I think Chris
So
can address that.
so the issue is actually topography, but it's driven by drainage. So um, immediately to the plan left of the monument sign location is a large culvert. So there is a sunken inlet and then a culvert to allow water to pass underneath our access point. I believe it's sunken down 3 or 4 feet, heavily riprap for erosion protection. Um, One of the items that was discussed in the site plan process with neighbors and planning board was issues and concerns with drainage. So what we've done is sort of oversized this system in hopes of improving um, drainage both at our site and downstream. So all the water
Hmm.
coming of our site, it looks like we lost them.
Oh, okay.
We lost him. Mhm.
Well, I'm sure he'll sign back on. But that's helpful for us to have establish the reasons for why you need the variance. Um,
Yeah, if you have the site plan, even the sight line diagram with the
yeah.
red dashed line, there's a rock hatch in a square box indicating kind of that drainage graded low area that um, kind
Hmm.
of forcing our hand on the dimension. Our preference, that sightline diagram was developed because our preference would be to set it back a little bit further. Um, Parents exiting, leaving, we need to be assured that they can see, out the driveway. So
Hmm.
we're doing the best we can to shift it as close to those rocks as we can, knowing that our parents are going to need to see out that driveway, hence the reason for the sightline diagram in the first place.
Chris says he's having connection issues, so I'm wondering
Mm.
if I turn on my um and on your phone. It's trying.
Look for him.
Hmm?
Look for him to let him back in.
Yeah. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Mhm.
Well, this will take an informal break while we wait to see whether we can get Chris back.
I think I see someone. Is that you, Chris?
He's muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Back on mute though.
But you backed on mute.
Okay, how about now?
There you go.
Great.
Okay, geez. All right, I'm really sorry about that, folks.
No, I'm glad you called in because otherwise we don't have a quorum.
Thank you for calling
All
back.
right.
Yes, I was thinking.
Oh my gosh,
I was
of course.
gonna say it.
So Chris was filling us in on the reason for the reason for the location, which requires the variance. And did you hear that part?
That's when I cut out. He was just answering my question.
Yeah. So Chris, you want to repeat that answer?
Yeah, certainly. So the main driving factor is drainage. There's a large depressed area, 3-4 feet depressed with an inlet at the bottom that drains to a culvert. That's directing about 3 or 4 acres worth of runoff from kind of what would it be north, kind of the high side of our site, right? We have a 6-acre site where we've only developed a couple acres, so there's a lot of runoff coming from above us. In our planning process, neighbors had shown up with pictures of some poorly drained areas, some flooding during large events. So it was a focus to make sure that these things were adequately sized. And so we're just extra cautious with that area. And that rock is kind of pushing that sign a little closer to the right of way. I had mentioned that it's also our preference for that sign to be further back when it can be, just for sightline visibility, which is why that sightline diagram had been prepared in the first place, just to confirm that we have the visibility we needed.
And I will point out that those materials that that Chris has referenced, the site line plan and everything is on the record it's available to anybody who cares on our website, on the town website. So if you go under the Board of Appeals, you see active appeals, all of the information that I listed in the beginning and the things that the plan that Chris just mentioned are on the website for everybody's help. Any other questions with respect to that?
I mean, I have questions just because I'm kind of a layperson and unable to read the site plan maybe as well as you can, Chris, but I'm looking at it now and I see where the sign is. Can you explain like what I mean, it looks like a pile of rocks to the left of the sign. I assume that's what it is, but what does it look like in like real life?
Yeah. I was going to say I could pull up a picture, but I don't think we quite have that area complete yet today. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
All right. Let's see here. It's to show these. Okay, so you're seeing the PDF.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So here's the sign is not shown on this plan, but you can see here we have a large swale. That's what this area is here, collecting water at the top of the retaining wall. They've got about 3 feet of depressed area where that water will collect. It'll drain through an inlet, run through this pipe, and into a swale that then runs down the Blue Hill Ave, adjacent to the right of way, all the way through. And then that sign has landed somewhere, in this rough vicinity. So it's sort of a gently sloped kind of detention pond area that you would see in other projects and areas.
Hmm.
And is it just for the record, are you unable to put the sign in the drainage area, or is it just aesthetically unpleasing, or what's the issue?
It would just be it's this area is riprap with average diameter 6-inch rock. It's a slope of 15 to 25%. Just placing the signage there would pose a challenge, even in terms of foundations, exposed, facade and things like that. Much easier to place it on a 2 or 3% slope.
Okay.
Can I just follow up on that just because of the reason I'm asking this is because of the way the statute is written on variances. When you say much easier, I mean, can you describe? Would it be just much more expensive? Is it doable? Would it take a lot more time? Can you just describe those details a little bit more?
Yeah, I guess I can make the case. I don't want to say it's not doable because everything is doable, right? In order to do it, you'd be looking at significantly revising uh, drainage plans that could trickle into a number of revisions going all the way back to planning board and site plan changes, right? There's guardrails, there's this drainage system, there's other storm inlets draining, catching other portions of the site. It's one of those where if I had to get the sign where it needs to be, I may need to go somewhere else for a variance on a different element. It's just a tight area. You can see we actually had the monument sign in a different location previously, and it's hard to find a spot where we're 15 feet back, which I think is the standard. Now we're up to 6 feet, and I just can't get us any better than that 6 foot number really without driving us into possible variances in other areas, whether that's pipe depth, whether that's cover over a pipe, kind of the same thing. Spacing from the right of way, those sorts of things. On that note, I don't think this is a first for you guys. And sort of doing some of my research, looking over Tim's comments, trying to make sure that we weren't going too far above and beyond in what we're asking for. I did look at Little Sprouts and their sign. I believe their sign is set 5 feet back. It's of a very similar size. The only difference would be theirs isn't illuminated from what I can tell. Just going down the road, there's a couple other Montessori's on Blue Hill Ave that also appear to have signage that may not be 15 feet from the property line either. So from a precedent standpoint, I don't think what we're asking for is anything new. And to your point, I do think there's a hardship here where getting to that 15-foot mark or even the 50%, 7.5 feet, isn't feasible in the areas where we could place something.
What's the issue with putting it on the other side of the driveway?
Same thing. You've got pipes, you've got slopes, we've got trees that have been protected. This doesn't show landscaping. Landscaping was a big topic of conversation with planning board. I think we've got over 100 plantings, or I want to say like 400 plantings, 100 trees and 300 shrubs that are getting planted for different things. You can see here we're already going to have to make some revisions in a couple of trees and shrubs, get them located elsewhere on the property just to make that sign fit in there.
How deep down does the sign go into the ground?
Likely to frost, so probably 36 to 48 inches.
And what is 36 to 48 inches under the ground that would prohibit you from either moving it or moving it across the driveway or whatever?
In the proposed location or in
No, in the correct location.
it would simply be the storm system would be the easiest answer. That's the only below grade feature other than poor soils.
Yeah, what I mean is, like, are there pipes under the ground? I mean, why couldn't you, like, what is it about the underground that is preventing you from keeping it 15 feet back?
It's this pipe right here. If I were to draw you a dimension, I want to say that pipe is 12 to 15 feet back.
But it could, look, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but I want to kind of understand this. So what about behind the pipe? Like away from the road?
Sure, you're saying set it at 25 feet back.
Yeah, or whatever that measurement is.
Oh, yeah. At that point, just becomes a visibility thing. Is it,
at that point, you were sort of wondering why you would have a sign if it's too far back,
and that's
far away from the road.
That's exactly right. Right. We have it's heavily lined with trees. There was a goal in doing so with the site plan stages. What we had put on the initial plan, again, is kind of a similar setback to what it was, and that's partially because of the visibility that you can't get from setting it 20 feet back or even 18 feet back.
and I'm sorry if I don't mean to interrupt anybody, I just can't see anybody, so you'll have to forgive me. The letter from the sign review committee said, if I remember correctly, that they had authority to allow for 50% of the distance. So I think 7.5 feet is what it was. Is there a reason that that wouldn't have been sufficient? Would that run into the same problems?
Yeah. So it just pushes the foundation and the limit of the sign into a conflict with the storm, underground storm, and at-grade storm structures and piping.
Has there been any conversation about reducing the size of the sign, or does it have to be that size?
There hasn't been conversation on it. We typically haven't needed to do it and haven't pursued that. It's a marketing thing from that standpoint, right? It's a logo and branding thing. We like to keep our signage the same, familiar. You're a growing brand. You want everyone to notice and recognize it, especially in the Boston, Massachusetts market where we're opening schools for the first time.
Great. As Chris had pointed out, for the members of the public, that the sign review committee does have the right to reduce that setback by 50%, the 15 feet setback. But this one, the request is 6.2, so that's why there's a variance request before this Board of Appeals. I would point out that the sign review committee has approved this sign. I think that the issues that are before us, as I said, the signage on the building itself, I mean, those are not illuminated. The sign review committee was fine with those. The monument sign is a separate sort of category. And there was, I said, there were issues pointed out by a neighbor about the illumination, and whether the sign might be visible from his site. Was hoping to have the lighting contained. I would point out that the planning board's requirements are that these signs are compliant with dark sky. And then, so Heather, could you explain a little bit more about the illumination that's being provided on the monument sign?
So it's a two, on each side of the sign, it's like a gooseneck. It's like it's an LED flood lighting, but it's attached to the top of the sign and it directs down just to light on the sign face only. So there's no spillage on the outside of the sign. The floodlights are targeted right to the faces of the sign.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
I saw something in the papers about, I don't know if it was the planning board that required that the sign, and I don't know do we have jurisdiction over the lighting, the timing of the lighting? But there was, did I read that there was a requirement that the lights only be on an hour before business opens and an hour after business opens? Did I misread that?
No, that's in there are two conditions in the site plan. Number 4, which is on the lighting, which says exterior lighting is on 1 hour before opening and 1 hour after closing. But then there is a second condition on number 9 on signage. And so the question gets to be sort of a, hair splitting situation about whether the language on exterior lighting refers to the lighting on signs, as opposed to the lighting on the building or the lighting in the parking lot or the lighting to help people get in and out of the building. And so in a condition on the signage, they say it just has to comply with our sign bylaws. And it doesn't mention anything about the timing on the signs. So I think that Chris had responded to that comment with a memo, an email back to us. didn't you, Chris, on June 16th?
Yeah, so to explain that a little bit, again, commercial daycare use in a residential neighborhood, residential zoning district, there was concerns about lighting. There always is. We typically would say we need 1 hour before for when it's dark in the mornings, and we need 1 hour after for when it's dark at night for teachers and staff and parents to leave. Um, the question that came up was safety and security. They asked us if we could go to a motion sensor that would trigger at 30 or 50% at all times, just in case someone wanted to pull into our parking lot for whatever reason. So that's what we were working on. In doing so, we found it very difficult to get this motion sensor system to tie into the overall building system. A lot of inverters, a lot of different things to get lights to work on one timer, but then a motion and 30% dimmable at another. So the discussion with the sign review committee was, I understand your guys' concern, but my ask would be, can we just set some hours of timing on the monument sign instead? It's just going to take out a complexity and a possible repair and maintenance nightmare going forward to try to get this monument sign to also follow a dimmable schedule. Now, there's then the aspect of, okay, well, why not just 1 hour after and 1 hour before it'll be lit up for those dark periods and that's it. And that's where my email came into play of like, it's a wayfinding measure. It's a marketing measure as well. It identifies, hey, we're here, but it also says, hey, there's a drive lane approaching. Hey, traffic may be turning in and out. So that's where I think some additional hours on the evening end would make sense.
So what time does the school normally close?
We're open, challenging me, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So the hours would be 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. for lighting. Obviously,
I have a quick question. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I apologize. Is that the wayfinding issue is, I appreciate the marketing point of it, but the wayfinding issue, is that a safety issue? Also, I guess
that's the approach, and the reason for me mentioning it is I had said marketing in the past, and Tim, who I've met, we've had conversations about this project in the past, had brought up that's not a strong enough argument, and I wanted to share other reasons why we light our signage, especially on a road like this. And I do think that there's an aspect of illuminating this sign that helps warn people of a commercial access, they're approaching one.
But we're talking about after hours, right? I mean, there shouldn't be a safety issue an hour after the business closes, right?
Not on a regular basis.
Yeah, and
But
you
it's
don't
not like
have,
what
you
I
don't
mean is
have
it's no
special,
longer a commercial operation after a certain hour of the day, right?
Again, not on a regular basis. That's not to say that we don't take a late trash pickup or an early trash pickup or a delivery for kitchens, or oftentimes an open house when we're first opening on a Saturday, something like that.
Right.
But
those are special
I understand.
circumstances, but yeah.
But it's still acting that way.
yeah, I didn't see a recommendation at all from the sign review committee on the timing. I mean, other than it says that the applicant wishes to keep the monument sign illuminated from 6 to 10, but they didn't say whether they thought that was a good idea or a bad idea.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I don't know if this is a now conversation, but I wasn't even sure to what extent we were. This was a decision before us, or if this is already. Maybe this goes back to the exterior lighting point you were making, Kathleen. I'm also. This also isn't really a variance issue, right? The lighting.
No,
part of
I
the
think that's
special
that's a
permit. Yeah.
special permit. That's a special permit for lighting for signage on a non-residential use in a residential district. So And then I think in that situation, I mean, we're relying heavily on the recommendations of the sign review committee. Um, and so, as I said, they point out that information had come in after they had their hearing to say, oh, well, there's a provision in the site plan approval that restricts the lights to no more than 1 hour prior and 1 hour after. But as I said, I think my reading of it does that applies to the exterior lighting, not necessarily the monument sign. But I'm also sensitive to the fact that you know people have pointed out that other signs on Blue Hill Avenue do not have uh, illuminated signs after dark, and certainly not as late as 10 o'clock. Um, I think that we would approve if we decide to approve it. We would be giving the special permit for the signs, and then we would probably throw in or not some discussion about the timing on the lights. But that's, as I said, that's separate from the variance on the distance from the road. I mean, setback from the highway and property line.
Right.
So
Right. Okay.
this is Badger Montessori just down the road. This is their monument sign, not too far off the roadway. They have an external light shooting up. I can't speak to the hours of it turning on.
Mm-hmm.
So again, other signage on this same road, same use with that external illumination as well.
Thank you. Is there any other information, Heather and Chris, that you'd like to provide the board? And then if not, we will probably just we'll discuss in the recommendations that I got the last time I went to a planning session was don't close the hearing and then talk about it because the applicants might want to say something and they can't if we've closed the hearing. So this is the newest practice is that we will discuss this and then you can still speak. If we close the hearing,
Okay.
you can't.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
So that's
I
what we would like to. If there were some conditions or something like that that come up in this course of the discussion, you would have the opportunity to weigh in on them, which you won't
Okay.
if we close the hearing. So,
right,
gentlemen,
right.
as I said, we have this letter from the bylaw review committee that has approved all the exterior signs, including the monument sign. And then as I said, there's a question before us about whether we want to grant the variance for the location of the monument sign, and secondly, approve the external signs with the lighting and the question on the timing, and whether we want to impose a restriction on the length of time that these lights could be on this building. So your thoughts, gentlemen?
I mean, on the lighting issue, I'm really just in favor of restricting it to 1 hour prior and 1 hour post.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see there being a continuing need to have the lights on until 10 o'clock at night in a you know in a school for young children. And I'm also sensitive to the neighbors' concerns about having lights on at night. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of agree with you, Kathleen, that the other schools and businesses on Blue Hill Ave don't have lights on that late at night. And so, in keeping with, in the interest of uniformity, those would be the restrictions I'd be in favor of. Um, are we discussing the variance issue as well?
Yes.
As far as the variance, I mean, like the law on the variance is so strict, and I just don't see that this application meets the standards. I mean, there are topographical issues with this, but they're not topographical issues that are inherent with the land. They're inherent with the development project, right? They were kind of created as part of this project, and I'm not convinced that that's what the variance standard addresses. And I'm also kind of mindful of the fact that I think there could be a sign that complies with the 15-foot setback. It just might be complicated to achieve that. And then I also don't think there's a substantial hardship for the same reason. I mean, the hardship has to relate to the land, and marketing, advertising, that kind of thing, does not qualify as a substantial hardship. So I don't know. I mean, I wanted to go first because that's kind of where I'm coming out on this, and I'll let you guys try to convince me otherwise, but that's kind of the way I'm feeling right now.
You want me to?
Chris?
Oh, go ahead, Kathleen. Yeah, I'm happy to go unless you want to first, Kathleen. I agree on the lighting. For the reasons that Michael stated. On the setback, I'm a little bit more conflicted, although I think that I come out this way the same way that Michael does. I take the applicant at his word about I think the sense of hardship. The problem is that I feel with the papers, at least, I'm a little bit at sea in terms of evaluating that. And I haven't really heard enough in this hearing to make me think that the standard under the statute has been met in this case. And given some of the possibilities here, in particular, the fact that this might have been a little bit easier if this were 7.5 feet as opposed to 6.2 feet or whatever it is. And I'm not entirely sure that that's not in fact a possibility. For example, I guess I come out the same way that Michael does, not because I don't appreciate the difficulties that the applicant might be facing. It's just I haven't heard enough or seen enough that makes me think the standard's been met.
I was kind of, I mean, as I said, I've read the sign review bylaw, a couple of times. And I'm sort of mindful of the fact that, I mean, it's sort of a variance from the sign review. The sign bylaw doesn't seem to me to rise to the same level as if I was looking for a variance for the actual zoning. And so while I appreciate the fact that, case law would support the fact that we need to find, serious hardships and all that sort of stuff, I'm thinking that the sign bylaw is sort of a lighter standard, for variances. That's just sort of my thinking.
Can I, if you can indulge me, just because I think that's important, and because I wasn't able to find I am going off the statute. What exactly then is the standard that we're dealing with?
Well, no, I mean, it's still the same language, but as I said, that we're looking for a variance for this for the sign bylaw, which says,
I see.
Which is a sort of, it's part of the zoning code, and yes, and so it should be, he keeping the same standards as any other kind of. We look a variance for a site setback for a building, but as I said, I'm sort of taking kind of a looser notion because it's just signs and not an actual structure, or an actual use. So and the other situation that I have is that I did spend time on the planning board, and so I'm also sensitive to the fact that this went through site plan review with the planning board, which, when I was on it, was on occasion a pretty painful process. And so if they have to go back to the planning board to get the site plan corrected to show the location of the sign in the stormwater, or the landscaping, I think that's going to be a problem. A pretty serious one. And because I know from the listening to the discussions of the current members of the planning board, is that the landscaping is a huge issue for them. And so if there are going to be sort of trees and things like that have to be bushes that have to be taken down and relocated because we won't give a variance on the setback, that's going to be a problem. I could see the planning board saying, no, they won't let that happen. And so I'm sensitive to the conflict between our way of thinking and what the planning board has gotten on the site plan review decision. And I also, I mean, uh, because of, because of my, background too, is that I'm not excited about the fact that there would be footings for a sign sitting in my stormwater system. I think that compromises the functionality of the stormwater. Um, Having looked at those over the years, I don't think that's helpful. But that's unfortunately, that's my experience. I mean, it's hard enough to make sure that you can get people that clean those drainage systems, let alone have a stick a sign 36 inches down into it. I don't think that's helpful. Um, um, so as you can tell, I'm sort of in support for the grant of the variance for those reasons. I'd like to protect the landscaping that was approved by the planning board, and I'd like to protect the stormwater system that's been installed by the applicant. I agree on the lighting. I don't see any reason to have a light on that road at 10 o'clock at night. Um, I don't know who you'd be marketing it to. Is somebody driving with a toddler in the back seat at 10 p.m. is gonna suddenly go, oh yeah, I'm so glad the sign is up here. I just I don't see the purpose of that. And as I said, I know there's many other signs on that road that are not lit that late. So um, I think that condition on the timing is fine to keep it with what the planning board has. But as I said, I don't think it's as simple a matter as one would hope to move the sign to a different location.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also sensitive to the same things, Kathleen. I want this business to be able to finish its development and get up and running. And I know that this is probably one of the last things that they're looking for. I just, the sign setback is in the bylaw, and the law as it stands is kind of like preventing me from taking that
Mhm.
step. And without guidance or without, more information, as Chris mentioned, it's hard for me to just kind of ignore the law on variances just for practical
Mhm.
purposes, right?
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what's sticking in my craw right now.
Uh, I I think I mean I want to be persuaded that we can read the standard differently given definitely what you're saying about
Mhm.
this is a sign, it's not a structure. And so, sort of getting me to the red zone. In terms of getting to the end zone, I wonder if we could actually get some more information about the hardship component of this, that could at least make me, maybe Michael, feel more comfortable that we're actually meeting the standard. So I think either way, I think I could get there, but that might be helpful.
So
I agree, and I would just add that, maybe some kind of discussion of alternatives and why alternatives might not work or create additional hardships might be a helpful part of that.
So here's what I would propose. Rather than, I mean, we could take a vote and they would be denied and they'd be having to put their sign, where they're supposed to put it. Um, I mean, we could vote and leave it at the 15-foot requirement. My thought on it instead is to sort of ask the applicants whether they'd be considering a continuation of this hearing and to see if we can get better information from the sign review bylaw committee as to what they reviewed. I mean, did they just review the appearance of the sign? Or did they go into the weeds about the location? I mean, was there information provided, to them in more detail than has been given to us on the actual reason for the location? Would that, does that sound as if
Can I
that's
just say
an,
one thing?
yes.
We did have the discussion at sign review about the placement, and there was no, Chris can maybe back me up on this, but
Mhm.
there did not seem to be any opposition to the location. at the
Mhm.
6.2.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's shown in their notes, right? I
Yeah,
think at
right.
7.5, 7.5 mark, they're comfortable, but we're asking for more than that, so it
Mm-hmm.
comes to you guys. We
right.
had the conversation with the chair of the sign review committee on the stormwater, the issues that were
Yeah.
presented there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that they're on board with the location. They're understanding why they're in support of it. It's now getting that extra foot and a couple inches from you guys that is putting us here.
Yeah.
Well, so I think that it would be my recommendation to you would be to agree to a continuance of this hearing. Or not, I mean, or not. I mean, we could say, fine, we could take a vote and discuss what we would, what we would consider. I mean, at this point, I think what you would be hearing from us, and gentlemen, please jump in if I've gotten this wrong, is that we would approve the special permit for, all the signage on the site. We would limit the lighting to 1 hour before you open and 1 hour after you close. And that we would, deny the variance for the setback. And that you'd have to figure out how to put it in at 15 feet.
15 feet or
Um,
7.5 feet.
well, you go back to this and go back to the sign review committee and say, we're going to do it at 7.2, and then you don't have to come to us.
Right.
Understood. I just was clarifying. Okay. Um, I I'm comfortable asking for the continuation, but I'd like to ask a couple more questions on what you guys discussed so I can understand what I would be coming back with.
Well, I
So,
think you've heard from us that, the members of the board have, when you issue a variance, there are standards set up by law that require the finding of substantial hardship. And so I think that gentlemen, speak up, but I think what we're hearing is that the case hasn't been made, that this is an impossible situation, and that the only place that you can put this is 6.2 feet from the property line. Am I right
so,
about that, gentlemen? Chris and Will?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
that's
Chair,
right.
if I may, the hardships I presented of landscaping, planning board, stormwater are substantial and significant. As you mentioned, you were on the planning board. I don't know if you know our background, but we had a completely different site plan. Single story building on top of an 18-foot wall. We had to start all over after our third planning board meeting. We went through 7 planning board meetings with the planning board, worked through everything from the block on the retaining wall being a natural stone, the number of trees, what species of trees. We went through it all. It was a process. So in terms of picking your battles and choosing your path to approvals, um, signage is the lesser of a lot of evils. And so that's where this is coming from. And I feel like you're starting to hear that. So, Mr. Brown, you mentioned, other info. Are you just looking for us to present in a more formal way why what the hardship is? Do you just need more documentation of that? Is what we've
I mean,
presented
I
not?
guess here's an example of what I'm talking about, right? So, like, we talked about the sign in Dedham, and you want to put the exact same sign up there in on this project, right? But that sign isn't going to work because it violates the setback, right? Could you use a smaller sign? Could you use a different sign, a sign that's supported in a different way, a sign that's in a different location? Any of those things I think would get me over the finish line, to use Chris's analogy. Um, but we haven't heard that case, right? All we've heard is that you have a sign that your business likes to use on all its projects, and that's what you need to put here for some reason. I haven't heard anything stated that would that actually goes to why this is a hardship, other than it's going to make your project uh, longer to get approved, and that's not what the law requires.
Okay, it's
Does
fair.
that make
I guess,
sense?
yeah, an alternative sign size placement. Understood. That's an alternative that wasn't evaluated.
Yeah, I mean, as the members have pointed out, we're bound by the law on variances, and that, we have to meet a certain standard to have those variances granted. And and we've got some information, but probably, not enough information. And so if there's a way to, as I said, to address the questions that Michael has raised and that Chris has raised, I think we get to a better understanding of whether or not there's an actual hardship here.
Understood. Would you consider, and this is going back to like signage versus zoning variances, is signage visibility considered a hardship?
Um, well, I'm sorry. So I'm looking at the bylaw, and so it says under variances, a sign requiring a dimensional variance from the zoning board of appeals shall be governed by Chapter 48, Section 10, which like everything else is, and those applications should be accompanied by a recommendation from the sign review committee, which they were, and so. So if you'd gone to the sign review committee and said, we can put this at 7 something feet instead of 6.2, the design review committee has the right to do that. So there's an option. I mean, that's another way around is that we continue this, you go back to the sign review committee and see if they can give you the 50% and put it, see if you can get it at 7 point, whatever that was, instead of 6.2,
Understood. And then
7.6.
Mr. Brown's point, if I reduce my sign size, I can get there without the variance needed from you guys. So
Exactly.
it's obviously not company's preference, brand marketing's perspective, the best choice because it's not the sign that's most visible from the roadway. But if the way this board is going to view it, we have to evaluate it that way.
I mean, that's as a practical matter. I mean, that's would be my recommendation is that you avoid coming to us you still get a special permit from us. And I think you've heard that we are perfect. We're okay with giving a special permit with the hours that we had said, 1 hour before and 1 hour after closing. And then if you go back to the sign review committee, which would be simpler, and say, we just want to alter our application to ask for 7.2 feet or a smaller sign or something that doesn't require being at 6. And so it's 7.6, they'll give you that.
Okay. So then I'd like to consider that.
Yeah.
I want to think it through. I want to look at the size of what
Right. And you need to talk to you need to talk to Heather, you need to talk to your company like that. But that would be, we give you the continuance and you have time to talk about that.
Okay.
But because otherwise, if we say no, you're
can't.
not back here for 2 years.
Right, you can't come back.
Right. And that's what I'm in my head thinking. I still need to come to you for the special permit of the 7.5 feet, but it comes from as a recommendation.
No.
No,
You don't
that's
have,
just the planning.
we just do a special permit that says, yes, you can have lighting. You can have signs on a building on a commercial use in a residential area.
Right.
So there's 2 requests. One, the
Right.
special permit for having signs of any kind
Mm-hmm.
on the building, on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
on the parking lot. That's a special permit that you need from us. And I think you've heard, I think that I could speak for the other 2
Right.
of us that I think that's fine. We would do that. But the variance part is the location of the monument sign.
Right. Okay.
Everything else is
But
not the variance requirement.
Understood. But it still comes back to you for the issuance of that special permit, which is why we need to continue so I can come back.
Well, I'm trying to think whether we could vote the special permit and continue the hearing on the variance.
Could you approve it or deny the variance and approve the special permit?
You don't want to, if we deny the variance, you can't come back to say, we
Yeah.
want something else.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do that.
I don't think that's a good idea for you.
All right. Well, then
Yeah.
let's just continue it under all these circumstances and we'll find out how to get to 7.5 feet, work with sign review committee. or hopefully, if for some reason I start to
Or
get
you
into it
can you,
and
you
not
have your
any,
engineers or something.
yeah,
You have your engineer, you have your lawyer who is beating his brains out trying to get the site plan approval from the planning board. Any number of things that to come back and make a better case for the hardship.
yeah, understood.
Yeah, Kathleen, if you wouldn't mind, if I could,
No,
on
go
that
ahead.
last point, what I would say is, what I would say on that, and this is going to echo, I think, both Kathleen's helpful synthesis as well as the comments Michael was saying earlier. If you can't get to, for whatever reason, the 7.5 feet that the sign review committee would approve, then I think the coming back with more is really just to meet the threshold of the statute, and more is the way I would put it, and I mean this just in terms of what I think I need to evaluate as a member of this committee is more than just what you are saying here without backup. I would need some. I feel like I would need to review something. I would need to have something I can look at, something I can read, something so I can actually understand the basis for the hardship argument that you're making. So if it comes to that point, so just so you know, sort of at least where I'm coming from and where I think Michael's also coming from.
Yes.
Understood. Yeah, if we get to that point, I'll go as far as looking how we can move storm pipes and identifying what the planning board amendment process would be to show, the significance of those locations.
Any further comments, gentlemen?
Nope.
So I
None
would
for me.
entertain. Yeah,
I was saying no.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I would entertain a motion for a continuance of this hearing to a date to be determined by looking at respective calendars of the participants on this panel, and to
So
give
moved.
Chris and time to, talk to the sign review committee, if he so chooses. All in
So
favor
moved.
of that?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Heather and Chris for coming before us. And I hope that this discussion was helpful to sort of hit you into a successful direction.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
we'll set, we haven't, normally we'd be meeting on the second Tuesday of the month. We had scheduled this one, a second Thursday of the month. And so that would be July 9th. But I have a serious conflict on July 9th, unless we did it at a different time than 7 p.m. So I would, at this point, look to probably doing it. We have to talk to Michael and Chris, and I have to talk about what schedule, dates would work. And so we'll have to get back to you on an actual date, but
Okay,
Yeah, and I will. I think we can try to work towards, even if it's not on one of the prescribed dates, we'll try to
Yeah.
get this
right.
scheduled so we can get you guys moving.
Yeah. I just that the week of July 6th, except for Tuesday, the 7th, I've got dress rehearsals for a concert on the 11th. So mandatory appearance.
Get it.
You,
Well,
and you
now-
don't want to hear the alto part that you
No.
I'm in dress rehearsal for dance recitals right now. I get it.
Ah,
Oh my
well, there you go.
God.
Yeah, yeah.
We can narrow down
So-
the date later. Yep, we
Yeah.
can narrow that down later.
Yes.
Okay,
So
all
we'll
right,
get to
well,
the
thank
will.
you.
So yeah. So
Yep.
and discuss what steps you think you want to take,
Yep.
and we'll go from there.
I understand the directives, so, yep, I get it.
Well, thank you very much.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you
everyone.
so much. All right,
Good night.
good night.
Thanks. So can I have a vote to
Bye-bye.
adjourn, gentlemen? I think
So
I'll
moved.
move.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And just confirming that we all in favor of the continuation. I think we did that too.
Aye.
Yes,
Just making
we
sure.
did. But I'm still in favor.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much.
All right. Good
Have
luck,
a good
Kathleen.
night.